The time is now 6:02 p.m. We will now call this regular public meeting of the Board of Trustees of Humble Independent School District to order. A closed session of the board will now be held on the matters contained in the notice for this meeting. Should the board determine that any final action, final decision, or final vote be required with regard to any matter considered in such closed session, then such final action, final decision, or final vote will be made upon reconvening of this public meeting in open session. The time is now 6:02 p.m. The time is now 7:09 p.m. We will now reconvene into open session. Thank you for joining us tonight. A reminder that the meetings of the board are open to the public but are not a meeting of the public. The Humble ISD Board of Trustees meet monthly in regular meeting to receive reports from staff and take action for recommendations of the superintendent. The board receives the agenda and all supporting documentation several days in advance of the regular meeting, which allows us to ask and receive answers to many of our questions in advance of the regular meeting. Therefore, lengthy discussions are not always necessary on everything on the agenda, but we as a board do have the appropriate knowledge and preparation for responses regarding the content of tonight's meeting. There are students and other guests present. To maintain decorum, respectful behavior is expected. Disruptive behavior and/or comments will not be allowed. And with that said, our first item is our pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. And now a moment of silence. You may be seated. Or should we stand? Now you may be seated. Moving on to our next agenda item, commendations and recommendations. Dr. Brown, can you please introduce tonight's inspiring moments?
Yes, Madam President, it's an honor. Okay, so we're excited to announce that our theme for this new school year is Shine On. At Humble ISD, one way we are shining on is by making sure that Hurricane Beryl does not hold us back from having convocation. You know, convocation is a special occasion where all of our amazing staff come together for an uplifting back-to-school message. This year, with the aftermath of Hurricane Beryl, we realized it just wouldn't be right to ask everyone to leave their campuses when there was so much to prepare for our students. So we decided to rethink and innovate. This year, we're holding individual convocations on our campuses during staff meetings through Friday, August 30th. Most of our plans for convocation will still happen in this setting, but there's one piece we had to adjust. We usually have amazing performances from our high school students, but that's kind of hard to do with 60 separate convocation sessions they just can't be at all of them. I don't think they can anyway. Pretty tough. That would be tough. That would be tough. So that's why we're thrilled to have them here with us tonight. And so let's give a warm welcome to our talented performers from Humble, Kingwood Park, and Summer Creek High Schools.
gents, this is the moment you've waited for.
Searching in the dark, your sweat soaking through the floor.
Buried in your bones, there's an ache that you can't ignore. Taking your breath, stealing your mind, and all that was real is left behind. Don't fight it, it's coming for you, running at you. It's only this moment, don't care what comes after. Your fever dream, can't you see it getting closer? Just surrender, cause you feel that feeling taking over. It's fire, it's freedom, it's blood. It's the picture in the moment, and you're blind to look. It's something lurking in the people, but you're not holding on to know. So tell me, do you wanna go? It's covered in all the colored lights. Runaways are running your night. Taking over where you go. This is the greatest show. When you light it up, we won't come down. The sun can't stop us now. Taking over you go. This is the greatest show. When you light it up, we won't come down. The sun can't stop us now. Taking over you go. This is the greatest show.
Okay, who needs Broadway? Just come to a board meeting. That's all you need to do. Well, a huge shout out to, and I think they're Miss Cammie Falk, wave. Theater director at Kingwood High School, Mr. Jason Watt. Wave, yes. The choir director at Kingwood High School, they dedicated their summer to working with the students on this fantastic performance. And so we appreciate all of their hard work and dedication and the dedication of the students, because that does take a lot of practice. So that's it. That concludes our recognitions for tonight.
The next item is public comment. The board encourages comments from citizens of the district or from district employees. Anyone wishing to speak, either as an individual or as a representative of a group, may do so following the procedure outlined in the agenda. The board asks that comments pertain to public education issues and be no longer than 3 minutes. Remember that the board may not discuss or act upon any items that are not posted in our agenda for today's meeting. If an issue mentioned is listed on tonight's agenda, the board will defer discussion until the appropriate time during the meeting. In addition, the board has adopted complaint policies that are designed to secure at the lowest administrative level a prompt and equitable resolution of complaints and concerns. Complaints brought by students or their parents, by employees, and by citizens may be heard in accordance with board policies. Each of these processes provide that if a resolution cannot be achieved administratively, the person may appeal the administrative decision to the board as a properly posted agenda item. Copies of our district policies on public participation in meetings and filing complaints are available on the Humble ISD website. The first person signed up to comment is Mr. Justin Lurie. And if I could have Elizabeth Fonders and Keisha Welsh go ahead and come forward and be seated in these chairs up here.
I was afraid I'd have to follow the singing and dancing, and now we're here. All right. Robert Scarfo, there he is, has been vindicated. Let me say it again. He has been vindicated. The cabal up here and no longer here, try to ruin his life. They try to ruin his name. They try to ruin his reputation. And I would ask, and why? And for what reason? It is now clear by all of the written facts gathered. Some did it to extort money from the district, and others to help their friends and their own perceived political power. I would say how sad, how dreadful, how unscrupulous. The cabal thought that Scarfo would just fold or he would retire quietly, but he did not buckle, nor did he waver, and he exposed their lies. This cabal voted to keep kites, indiscretions hidden from you, the public. They voted to hide the damaging evidence so their friends could both keep their high-paying jobs and get new ones out of state, such as Nevada. They read the reports, unredacted. They know the truth, but they think you as a public do not deserve to know, even after over $1 million in legal fees has been spent. These people, they are hypocrites to their oath. They do not act in the best interest of the students, but they replace it with the best interest to their friends. They do not act in the best interest to the faculty, but in protecting sexual harassers. They do not act in the best interest of taxpayers, but instead they obfuscate until after the election. These are the same people who fought tooth and nail to prevent a trustee from sharing very basic facts about STAR test results and how the district is academically crumbling for the last 7 years. If this small cabal, Miss Dixon, Mr. Holmes, Mr. Sitton, Nancy Morrison, and Dr. Fagan, if they had any integrity, all remaining would resign immediately, but they've already proven they do not. The only reason we, as a public, are aware of the astonishingly bad behavior and attempted cover-up is because the board changed at the last election. Morrison lost and flipped the dynamic. Morrison went out, and now the truth comes in. Again, they framed Mr. Scarfo. They lied, they try to ruin his life. And so all they could do, they did it so they could keep their friends happy and their perceived political power. You remaining should quit tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Lurie. Are you Mrs. Fonders? Thank you. Did I say that properly?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm here as a concerned parent and community member. I hope you will reconsider your policy to not provide bus transportation to students living within a 2-mile radius of a school. I recognize the state is withholding funds, and this has become a financial issue for the district, but ultimately the safety of our students should be this district's #1 priority. As board members, it is your duty to ensure policies are protecting all children. We live 1.8 miles from Wood Creek Middle School, and my 10-year-old son would be required to walk across Westlake Houston Parkway. It's a 4-lane road with 45-mile-an-hour speed limit, though drivers well exceed 55. There are 2 lights with electronic crosswalks, but those crosswalks do not provide a dedicated light, which means children will have to cross the street while cars are turning left with a green arrow and right on red. This would be dangerous for any adult to navigate, especially with unexpected dangers of distracted drivers, let alone a child. What will it cost for you to change your mind? I fear it's going to take a child being killed. Daily, there are incidents across this district, including one this week with a student leaving Groves Elementary School. And so this is not just an issue for those of us living in Summerwood. There's also the extreme weather to consider in Houston. Our athletic teams and bands have not been able to practice in the afternoons at dismissal time because conditions were too hot and dangerous, yet you're expecting children to carry 7 classes worth of notebooks and materials, as well as maybe an instrument home up to 2 miles in this dangerous heat. I have yet to speak to anyone who thinks that walking up to 2 miles to school, no matter the conditions, is a amenable solution. It takes the average adult 40 minutes to walk 2 miles, and for a child with a much smaller gait, it can take up to an hour. Considering children who attend our middle schools do not have lockers, they're carrying many materials, and we all know that weather changes here very quickly, and in 40 minutes to an hour can go from being fine to dangerous. I truly believe that if more community members were aware of this issue, they would be here today to speak out against it. It's been suggested by area districts that parents be responsible for sending their kids to school. However, as Humble's largest employer, as one of Humble's largest employers, how many employees do you allow to show up late to work or come or leave early from work to pick up their children? I suspect very few, and so I don't think we can expect other employers to allow this. My husband and I have made the difficult decision to pay $75 a week, which is nearly $3,000 a year, to send our kid on a private transportation. This is a true hardship for our family, and frankly, it's not an option for most families in this district. We need to ensure that our public schools, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Fonders. Is Mrs. Welsh here? Okay, our next few speakers, Mrs. Cintron, Ms. Powell, and Mr. Stoistis. If you want to go ahead and sit in the seats.
Are they
Please.
here?
Huh?
Are the other speakers here?
Ms.
Here.
Powell, is Ms. Cintron here? Cintron?
Good evening. I was actually going to read an email that I sent to the board with some compromised information, but I'm not. But I really hope you guys listen to that email, take it to heart, and do something about it, because we have some serious issues going on within our school district. I recently learned that a board member has compromised private information related to students, employees, and other matters protected under FERPA. This individual used an external server for district-related activities by forwarding hundreds, if not thousands, of emails to their work email address. This breach demands immediate action from both the district and the board. I assume that the district will notify all affected individuals when third privacy party interests are involved. It is crucial that those impacted are informed about this potential open records and data release and breach of confidential information. The board member was aware that sending confidential, privileged, and private student family information to a private server visible to all of that server's employees was inappropriate, yet that board member continued to do it. However, they don't care. We cannot sustain the full extent of leaked information, and I urge the board to take swift measures to address and prevent further breaches. Ms. Parker, during our previous conversation, you agreed that this was a serious issue and that you mentioned you would address it with the board member. Given the gravity of the situation, can we expect disciplinary actions to be taken against this board member? Because it's deeply troubling that the district once again compromised as a whole due to the actions of a very selfish board member. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Powell. Mr. Stoistis?
Last meeting, the board voted to terminate Superintendent Fagan's contract. Superintendent Fagan failed her responsibility to investigate and correct problems of sexual harassment in the athletic department. 3 trustees did not vote to terminate her contract. Trustee Dixon, Trustee Sitton, and Trustee Holmes. Judging by your vote, it appears that you don't think this sexual harassment was a big deal. And as a result, I believe that you're unfit to serve on this board, and you should resign. Furthermore, when disgraced athletic director Troy Kite filed a complaint against Scarfo, a baseless complaint, which Scarfo was completely exonerated. 3 trustees testified against Scarfo on behalf of Kite. Again, trustees Sitton, Dixon, and Holmes. Your behavior is beyond despicable. It's vile and disgusting. You have no place on this board, and you should resign immediately.
Thank you. Mrs. Shannon?
Greetings. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Tonight we will have show and tell about propaganda that can be found in our school, specifically trans propaganda. Propaganda is not truthful and for that reason can legally be removed from our libraries. Here are a few examples of propaganda in our schools. In middle school, gender identity. This book discusses trans identities and introduces the concept of non-binary, says sex is not binary, and that sex is a social construct. This book introduces trans identities, encourages oral sex, anal sex, and role-playing, and says that curiosity about porn is healthy. And it also says to access community resources if your parents are not accepting of your identity, so you can move out. This book claims that LGBTQ identifying athletes aren't getting a fair shake, when in fact they dominate the media and are widely celebrated. Males who identify as women are defeating and displacing women in competitive sports, including in the Olympics, where we just saw 2 men literally beat women. Males are rightfully excluded from female sports to stop cheating and to physically protect females and to protect female opportunities and accomplishments. Another one. This introduces the concept of born in the wrong body, which is a lie, and says that if you're a boy that likes playing with dolls instead of cars and trucks, or you want to try on a dress, then you might be born in the wrong body. Another one that says that you could be born in the wrong body. This one is about a boy who pretends to be a girl, and his mother also pretends to be a man. And these books are available in middle school and elementary school, as well as high school. Another Born in the Wrong Body book. It encourages the use of packers. In case we've forgotten, this is a packer that's stuck in the pants of little girls, in little girls' underwear, so they can pretend to be a boy. Also, as recommended by the therapist that you allow to be engaged with students in this district. Remember the one that y'all wouldn't fire? This type of propaganda paves the way for desensitization and increases boundary violations such as men and female spaces. Trans ideology is one of body disassociation, external validation, attention seeking, and narcissism. The ideology cannot coexist with legitimate rights of others, especially women and girls. You cannot feel like the opposite sex. Sex is not a feeling, and you cannot be born in the wrong body. There are 2 sexes, and adherence to reality is important for a healthy society. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Shannon. Comments by individual board members. I'll begin with Mr. Sitton.
I'll hold my comments to the agenda.
Mrs. Lamont Dixon.
Yes, I just want to welcome all of the teachers, staff, and students back, and I hope you have a wonderful year. And happy birthday to Mr. Grabowski and Mr. Sitton.
Mr. Grabowski.
Well, good evening and welcome back, everybody, to another school year, to especially the 3,300 teachers and staff and everybody supporting them and all the kiddos. I know it's about that time of the year when my wife, who teaches 2nd grade, as some know, says it's time to start our daily trips to either Target, Michael's, or Hobby Lobby, and they continue for about a straight week. But Dr. Brown, thank you. You were sitting there just 3 months ago and up here in a hurricane later. You have righted the ship, and thank you for your leadership and getting this year off to a great start. So thank you, sir. I want to point out 3 people, if you don't mind standing, please. Miss Christy Erb, Miss Stephanie Davis, and Miss Allison Pierce, if you're here. All 3 are here. Well, I had them stand because I was talking to Miss Erb some months ago, and she let me know a few days ago that the 3 of them collectively are going to work together, just got accepted at Lamar University to do a dual superintendent certificate and for their PhDs in education. So congratulations, ladies, to all of you. I think that is fantastic, and I look forward to calling the 3 of you doctor, and doctor. So that is all, ma'am.
Mr. Holmes?
Hey, good evening. Really excited for the teachers, students, faculty. I know, I live in the Groves area, and I can, in good conscience, just want to address this issue with the buses. It weighs heavy on my heart, and I know that there's budget issues. So just want you to know, parents, that I'm hoping at some point we can look at figuring out how to do that. And also, happy birthday to Mr. Sitton, Mr. Grabowski. To the musical theater team, one in particular, Emerson Harris, I do want to call you out. I've known Emerson for a while, but that music team, I just want to say I'm proud of you. You guys did an outstanding job, and again, our fine arts program just continue to really, really shine. So again, thank you.
Mr. Scarfo?
Thank you, Madam President. Just on a personal note, I just want to stop now and have a chance to just thank all the many, many people in various methods that they reached out to me over the last couple of weeks, whether it be by email or text or phone calls or seeing me at events in the community, Facebook, and just with their words of support. Once that report was released and was made public, it was very heartwarming to hear people say the kind of things they told me about, having to wait through that ordeal with me for over 12 months. A little absurd, but anyway, good result. And I just want to thank each and every one of them from the bottom of my heart. I know it might have taken me a little time to get back to everybody because there were a lot. But I want to thank you. It means a great deal to me. It wasn't easy to go through, but I think we're in a better place, and that's a good thing. And I just also want to say welcome back to our students, our staff, parents, and we're off to what seems to me, from everything I've seen and heard, off to a smooth start, very rolled out great. And Dr. Brown, compliments to you, your senior staff, for making that happen, because I know it's a lot goes into making the sausage. So appreciate everything you guys did, especially with the hurricane throwing a little bit of a curveball into that. But you guys are resilient. Nothing stops you, so I appreciate that. So thank you, and God bless us all for a great year as we move to focus on improving student performance. Thank you.
And lastly, me, I would like to welcome everybody back to school. It's going to be a great 2024-2025. Happy birthday, Mr. Sitton and Mr. Grabowski. Have a great one later this month, and I hope you had a wonderful one on Sunday. So our next item is comments by the administration. Dr. Brown?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Just like all of you, want to welcome everyone back. We have just right at 47,500 students today, and so we're excited about that and continue to grow each and every day, and so we welcome all those students. If you enjoyed tonight's performance, that's just the start. With the students being back, we have all kinds of activities kicking off. Fine arts, if that's your thing, we have it. Athletics, kicking off. We have all of that getting ready to start, student organizations, so just encourage everyone. find what you like, we offer it, and go see it. And it'll be just as entertaining as what you saw tonight. That was just amazing. And so lastly, I would like to introduce Mr. Ray Hernandez. He's out in the audience. Mr. Hernandez, he's our new CEO for Partnership Lake Houston. And so we're glad you're here and joined a board meeting. So thank you so much for being in attendance.
So moving on to our next agenda item, action items from closed session. Item 4A, personnel recommendations. Mr. Holmes, do I have a motion?
I'd like to speak. We did not actually go over this in closed session.
With Mr. Gardner?
Just this one piece, as far as general counsel?
Mr. Holmes, that wasn't on the personnel agenda, so you are correct. The motion would be to approve, the motion could be to approve the administration's personnel recommendations as presented, which does not include the general counsel position.
Okay. All right. Let me make sure I say that right. So you're saying even though we didn't discuss it in closed session, I can make a motion, or we can make a motion to approve it?
You can, yes and no.
Okay.
So the motion that's on the agenda says including potential general counsel.
Okay.
There is no general counsel to be hired tonight. So the motion would be to approve the administration's personnel recommendations
All right.
as
That's fine.
presented.
Okay, that's fine. All right. Motion to approve the administration's personnel recommendations as approved in closed session with addendum.
And just to be clear, it says presented in closed session because you didn't approve it. No action was taken.
As presented in closed session
Don't you love me being here?
with addendum.
Second.
The motion has been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Motion passes 7-0. Item 5. Moving on to item 5, our consent agenda.
Madam President, point of order, we do have an item 4B and an item 4C.
Your point is well received. Item 4B, there is no motion, and item 4C, I mean, there's no action.
Madam President, I mean, you had them on the agenda for how I understood reading it in case that needed to have a motion.
Correct,
But there
correct.
was no motion, so we just passed by it.
Yes, because to discuss.
Okay, well, I'd like to discuss 4B.
All right, Mr. Holmes, can I have a motion?
How do I even manage that motion? Because we didn't discuss it. Motion to consider and take possible action regarding employment of superintendent, including proposed termination.
There would have to be a second to
Second.
discuss it.
The motion has been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Sitton?
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. One, I'd asked you why this was on here, since as far as I knew, there was not going to be any action taken, and your response was it needed to be there in order for us to discuss any.
Correct.
But under closed session, it says pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.074, attorney consultation regarding legal issues related to employment of the superintendent. So that's already there, which gives us the opportunity to discuss. But now we have an action item on action that was already taken last month. So again, this is another one of those agendas where we're redundant. We started putting stuff about Mr. Scarfo, we started putting stuff about Dr. Fagan on multiple agendas with no action taken because there was no discussion made. So, and Ms. Spalding, you may remember, I brought this up in a public board meeting, that why do we keep putting action items out here with no action available to be taken?
Mrs. Spalding, should we go back into closed?
I think so, Ms. Parker.
All right.
Under 551074 and 551071.
We will take a short recess. The time is now 7:44 p.m. The time is 8:03, and we're back from our recess. Mr. Holmes?
Yes, Madam President, I move to withdraw the motion made regarding item 4B.
Thank you. Item 4C, consider and take possible action regarding employment duties of an acting superintendent. Mr. Holmes, do I have a motion?
Yes, I move that the board continue to study an appropriate stipend for our acting superintendent and postpone this item until our next regular meeting.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
The motion has been moved and seconded by Mr. Scarfo. All those in favor? Or is there any discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries 7-0. Moving on to item 5A, our consent agenda. Item 5A, approval of minutes for the July 23rd, 2024 regular board meeting. Consent. Item 5B, approval of goods, professional services, and non-construction services exceeding $50,000 in the aggregate or $25,000 individually. Consent. Item 5C, 2024-2025 construction and construction-related purchases. Consent. Item 5D, bond fund transfers and amendments. Consent. Item 5E, budgetary transfers and amendments. Consent. Item 5F, tax refunds. Consent. Item 5G, board authorization of interlocal agreements. Consent. Item 5H, approval of RFP number 2021-003R-24, supplies, equipment, and services for students with disabilities. Consent. Item 5I, approval of RFP number 2023-102-35, services, repairs, maintenance, and installation district-wide. Item 5J, and that was consent. Item 5J, approval of RFP number 2024-102-12, software subscriptions and web-based applications. Consent. Item 5K, approval of RFP 2024-104-50, books and publications. Consent. Item 5L, approval of RFP 2025-101-59, transportation, fleet repairs, maintenance, and services district-wide. Consent. Item 5M, consideration of guaranteed maximum price amendment 1 for the Foster Elementary School Replacement Project. Consent. Item 5N, school attendance area for Lake Houston Middle School. Item 5N has been pulled. Mr. Holmes, can I get a motion on the consent agenda?
I move to approve consent agenda items 5A through 5N, exclusive of pulled item, Actually, there was no pulled items.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was.
Item 5N.
5N. Exclusive of pulled item 5N.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Did we have a second?
Yeah, second.
Okay. Sit.
Well, I thought we're.
This is the
It was a
consent
consent.
agenda.
On the
The
consent.
consent.
All those in favor? Item carries 7-0. Mr. Holmes, can I have a motion on the pulled item? Item 5N.
So motion to approve. Option 4 is the school attendance area for Lake Houston Middle School.
Second.
Second, seconded by Ms. Lamont Dixon. Any discussion? Mr. Grabowski?
Thank you, Madam President. I've heard from some parents that there's 4 options, and Dr. Brown, is it possible that you could quickly go through those and show why your administration picked the one they wanted so that the public, and just for transparency, why we're going the way we're going?
Absolutely, Mr. Grabowski. In fact, Mr. Perkins and Ms. Mount are, as you can see, they're at the podium, they're ready to go, they're ready to present how this all came about, the attendance zones for Lake Houston Middle School. So, Mr. Perkins?
Good evening, trustees. I was tasked tonight to provide a quick briefing on how we've developed the attendance boundaries and why we're recommending option 4 to the board tonight. So we'll get started there. As you can see, hopefully about this time next year, we'll be opening Lake Houston Middle School, and that is a rendering. It doesn't quite look just like that right now, but it's getting closer every single day. Some of the factors that we consider when doing boundaries is preventing and eliminating overcrowding, allowing for future growth. A couple of other things that we'd like to take into account are natural boundaries that we ask PASA to look into, such as railroad tracks, neighborhoods. We don't like to really split neighborhoods street by street. And also we like to look at keeping kids together when they move from elementary, moving to the same middle school and to the same high school. We're not able to be perfect in those areas, but we try to be as minimally invasive as possible so it doesn't create so much chaos. Why the need for middle school 11, which is Lake Houston Middle School? PASA has been saying for years now that we would need a final 11th middle school, and so this is the slide that was presented to the committee showing that the need for the middle school and an approximate number of students that would need to be housed at the new middle school. So when we start attendance area boundaries, we start with a district committee in regards to that. That's including parents from the campuses that are affected. It also includes community members and then district staff. We bring that committee together and we ask PASA, which is Population and Survey Analysts, our demographer group, to come up with 2 starter options for us, really using 3 primary things: reducing and eliminating the overcrowding, using natural boundaries as much as possible, and then keeping neighborhoods whole. And then PASA develops 2, we call them starter options for the committee. We bring those to the committee. The committee then looks and analyzes the data. We give them all the planning units and all the data from PASA to go along with that. They analyze those 2 options that we presented, and then they can also present additional options for us to consider. And in this particular case, that did happen, and they presented option 3 and 4, which we had PASA draw up for us, and then we with the committee. We looked at all 4 of those options, did the advantages and disadvantages of all 4 of the options with the committee itself, and then we come up and we present those 4 options in a community input meeting that was done on May the 20th at Summer Creek High School. And so we also do online input for our community input, and I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Jamie Mount now to speak about that.
So following the community input meeting, the district put out a survey to parents at all of these schools that you see on screen, And then we also had an opportunity for people who perhaps didn't have a child enrolled in school, but they live in the neighborhood, to give input through a posting on our website. And the survey had 4 options. When we put out surveys, we really don't know what the feeling is going to be. They're all 4 viable options. The district is open to any of those options, but we put it out to the community in order to get feedback on their feelings. And so when the survey came back, it became very apparent that option 1 and option 4 had strong support. Option 2 and option 3 did not have much support. So at that point, as a district, we started really analyzing option 1 and option 4. Option 1 actually had slightly more support. You can see a 2.5% difference over option 4, but the survey is one component that we look at. The survey also includes the opportunity for people to submit comments, and over and over and over again in the comments, we heard that there was great passion for keeping Summerwood together at Wood Creek Middle School, and that is only possible under option 4. And so some additional analysis was done between option 1 and option 4, and Mr. Perkins will share that analysis.
So if we'll take a look at the map on our current middle school attendance zones, you'll notice there's going to be several planning units that we'll look at that really distinguishes between option 1 and 2. 12A, you'll notice over on the left-hand side of the map there, in our current setup, it goes to Humble Middle School. And then there's 2 others, 55F, it's at the lower right-hand corner, and also 15P that is right in the dead center. So when we transition to the 2 options and explaining the difference between the 2, you'll notice there Planning Unit 12A, which is the Park Lakes subdivision. That one, in both of the options, one of the primary goals of the attendance committee on this round was providing some relief for Humble Middle School in the long run. And 12A, Planning Unit 12A does that. It takes a little over 200 students, would eventually take a little over 200 students out of the Humble Middle School attendance area and move those to the Autumn Ridge attendance area. So when you do that, so that you don't overcrowd Autumn Ridge, you have to begin to look at what planning units would make sense to maybe move from Autumn Ridge to Lake Houston Middle School. And then 15P is another planning unit, which is that central area of Balmoral. You could do something with that planning unit, and the other one is 55F, which is the east side of Dewson Parkway in the Summerwood neighborhood. So when you take a look at those and you compare them against the 2 options, some things really stood out to us right from the beginning. The students in 15P currently go to Centennial Elementary, and then the students in 55F, they currently go to Centennial, but when we rebuild Summerwood and add the addition there, the long-term plan has always been by the district to take 55F and move that to Summerwood Elementary. And so when that's finished, bringing another boundary committee back and making that move is what we would be recommending, that we've recommended all along. And so when you compare option 1 versus option 2, and you begin to look at, one of those things I mentioned was keeping elementary students together and moving from their elementary to their middle school, option 4 does that a lot better than option 1 does. It takes the students in 15P that are part of Balmoral that currently go to Centennial and would send them all together to Lake Houston Middle School, and then eventually the elementary students in 55F that would go to Summerwood Elementary would then also, in option 4, move on to Wood Creek with their peers. And so the reasons essentially why we're recommending option 4 above option 1 is that it addresses the overcrowding at Humble Middle School. Yes, you'll see a still slightly elevated number of resident students at Humble Middle School at about 1,300, but when we are building new Sterling Middle School, we plan to build that for approximately 1,200 students, and then there could be some work that we could do in the boundary committee to rezone some areas of the district up there to new Sterling Middle School to give Humble Middle School that relief they would need for the long run. Also, it addresses the overcrowding at Westlake Middle School. As you can see, the resident students from Westlake Middle School would drop down to about 981 students, so it would address that issue as well. And then option 4 is really the most balanced option between all 4 options, really. It balances it out nicely. The district's always had a philosophical belief that about 1,000 students is what we would want in our middle schools, and option 4 does do that, and it also allows a little room within between middle schools, because we have some neighborhoods that back up to some middle schools that are zoned to go in a different direction. But with option 4, it does give us a little bit of room in the transfer process to maybe grant some transfers to some of those campuses where somebody may want to go because they geographically may live a little closer to that campus than another. So, with that, essentially, we do grandfather. I did want to mention that. Those students that currently go to Autumn Ridge or Westlake, they are grandfathered in, through their 8th grade year, so we wouldn't be forced moving any kids to go anywhere else. They would still have the ability to go where they want to. And I mentioned we do have a transfer process that when the numbers all even themselves out at the campuses, we would probably be able to open those campuses up to facilitate those students that may want to transfer campuses and manage the populations like that. All right.
Mr. Perkins?
Yes, sir.
When all is said and done, what we're really talking about between 1 and 4, and you recommended 4, and you presented that in the Building and Planning Committee meeting, appreciate that. It's really only that 55F is what you're keeping at Wood Creek, as opposed to in option 1, it would go over to the new middle school.
Correct.
So
Yes,
that's really, that is the big difference, right? It's just it's that one piece. So it's not
those two,
really,
yes, sir, it's those
between
two
1 and
planning
4,
units.
it's not really that different. And for the reasons you said, that you felt that this was a better way to go by keeping that.
We felt that
community together.
it also adhered to the keeping students
Right.
together,
Exactly.
elementary to middle school, as much as possible. It's impossible and we can't do it across the entire district,
Right.
but when we have 2 options and one option clearly is better for matriculating those kids from elementary to middle school all together with their peers, then that came out for us.
And it's helping you with the load balance too, as you showed us in the detail, and it's in that information.
It does, that's
And
correct.
it's helping with the Balmoral students because they're at Centennial Elementary and the new middle school is just right there.
Yeah.
So they're used to
You
being.
can really,
there.
you
They'll
really
be
see
used
the
to being in that
transition
area.
from 12A out of Humble Middle to Autumn Ridge. We needed to open up some room in Autumn Ridge, which was 15P, and then we needed to open up a little bit for Middle School 11 and balance them out by moving 55F. It made logical sense to us.
Well, I mean, personally, I think your well-thought-out recommendation by the whole team is a great solution. I think that's option makes the most sense. So thanks.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Mr. Perkins, Ms. Mount, and the team for working so hard on this item. All those in favor? Item passes 7-0. Moving on to action item 6A, consider and take possible action regarding reevaluation of district's participation in Morath versus Kingsville ISD, 0323-00729-CV, Court of Appeals. Mr. Holmes, do we have a motion? Okay, all right, Ms. Spalding, we need a motion.
A potential motion could be one of the following. I move that the district take no action regarding the reevaluation of the district's participation in the noted lawsuit, or I move that the district consider and take action to reevaluate its participation in the noted lawsuit and exit the lawsuit.
Mr. Scarfo?
Yeah, I'll provide you with the motion. I move that we exit the lawsuit. Is that enough in the motion, or you want me to?
No, that's appropriate. That is an
That's my
appropriate motion.
motion.
What was the motion?
To exit from the TEA lawsuit, or the lawsuit against in Morath versus Kingsville ISD, that we remove ourselves from that lawsuit.
So the motion has been moved and seconded by Mr. Grabowski. Is there any discussion? Mr. Sitton?
So what prompted this to come back up? I mean, this was talked about by all of us, and it was voted on to join this lawsuit. What's changed?
I placed this on the agenda. One of the people that voted to participate in the lawsuit has changed their mind. And per Robert's rules, if you want to help me out.
Yes, if there's a reconsideration issue, it has to be somebody who was on the non-prevailing side or on the prevailing side to bring it up for reconsideration, and that was brought to Ms. Parker's attention.
So this is going to be a new practice that we're going to relitigate agenda items going forward if we don't get our way the first time?
It's the opposite of that. You has to be somebody who was on the prevailing side of a motion to bring it up for reconsideration, so
Okay.
somebody on the losing side cannot.
Gotcha.
Correct.
Okay.
Anyone else? So just to, a motion to in the affirmative is yes, removing ourselves from the lawsuit. That's correct?
If the motion on the table prevails, then the next step would be the lawyers and Dr. Brown talking to your counsel in the lawsuit to get you removed from further participation.
Mr. Holmes?
Yeah, I think it would be, prudent for the community to know what this lawsuit entails because it has been a while. So I'm not that deep in the weeds on this one, but I'm asking maybe our legal team to share what this lawsuit entails. I think, again, just so the community knows.
Would you like me to respond to that, Ms. Parker?
Ms. Balding?
So back in, I don't even know what month, within the last year, a group of school districts filed a lawsuit against the Texas Education Agency Commissioner of Education requesting that the 2022-2023 STAR scores not be released because that group of lawsuits believed that the rules of the game were changed in the middle of the school year and that the schools therefore could not adequately prepare for the STAR test and for the new accountability, and therefore, and believed the Commissioner of Education did not have the legal authority to change the rules at the time they were changed. And so this group of plaintiffs filed a lawsuit, and you are not in that group of plaintiffs. However, there is a group of interveners represented by Thompson Horton, Chris Gilbert, and his team, who joined the lawsuit with similar arguments. And you and other school districts did join the lawsuit with that group of interveners, making similar arguments, raising concerns about the 2022-2023 scores. You may be a little confused because yesterday there was action in Austin at the Austin District Court on a separate lawsuit. So to continue on the first lawsuit, the 22-23 scores lawsuit that you are an intervener in, the district court granted the injunction back in October, November maybe, and do not hold me to that date, please, finding that the commissioner did not have the authority to release the scores. The commissioner then appealed that decision to the Court of Appeals in Austin, and that is where it is pending. No decision has been made. It's been pending there since whenever. Christmas time, right. Yesterday, there was a decision made at the Austin District Court on a separate lawsuit that you are not a part of, and that related to the 23-24 scores. And that was a group of school districts, again, that you are not part of, that alleged similar arguments regarding the 2023-24 accountability. So just for the community and for your purposes, that's two separate lawsuits. The one that had action yesterday is not the one you're in.
Mr. Holmes?
Yes, and don't know if this is appropriate, but I would love to know what changed. Mr. Scarfo, Mr. Grabowski, I think you were on by then. I would just like to know, because I just want more context, and maybe you have a little bit more than me.
In regards
To why you're, I think you voted in the affirmative before.
No, I voted.
You voted against it?
yeah.
Okay. I don't know if we even have access to this information. How much are we being charged, being represented by our law firm? Do we have that?
I don't know that information.
Anything further? All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion carries 4-3. Next are information items. Item 7A, intruder detection audit. Mr. Perkins, do we have a report?
We have no audit since our last board meeting.
Thank you.
Wasn't sure.
Item 7B, updates from board associations and committees. Does anybody have something to report? Our last item, 7C, financial services reports, is a monthly administrative item. Any questions or discussions from the board regarding this item? Moving to our closing items, are there any topics for future board business? Mr. Holmes.
Yes, I'd like to discuss and put on the agenda our bus zoning and the radius and this whole pickup and drop off.
Is there any interest in this item?
I'm interested, to get information.
Information. I just would like,
I would like it as an information item, Mr. Holmes.
I would. I know in board building and planning, our CFO has presented the reasons why we did it. I think it would probably be best to even probably have that presentation. I can't remember, Mr. Beatty, if you actually even discussed it here in a board meeting. I can't remember that. We didn't. Okay. I would like to maybe have that shared with the public as well, what was presented in our committee meeting a few months back.
Any interest in this item? Okay. 4, yes. So we will consider that as an information item at a future board meeting. Mr. Sitton?
Yes, I know it was mentioned when we were looking at the boundaries, and it was mentioned about the new Sterling Middle School. I would like either a discussion with the board or Ms. Mount's team to look into this about a potential rebranding of Sterling Middle School back to its original name, which was Humble Middle School. And then Humble Middle School would then be rebranded as well. It's 2 schools. We just rebranded North Bend from North Belt because of geographic reasons. The original Humble Middle School, after it moved from Bender, the Bender building, is where Sterling is today. Once it was turned into a 9th grade center, the new Humble Middle School was built by Atascocita Forest. And so it would make sense staying on that property where Lakeland is, one of the original one of the original elementary schools, and Sterling Middle School staying on that property to rebrand it to Humble Middle School. So,
Is there any interest in this item? So 4-3, or so I guess 3-4. 3-4. So we won't be considering that. Mrs. Lamont Dixon?
Yes, I received an email stating that the board has been asked by Mr. Southerland that we sit with his client to get feedback. And I would like us to consider that. I mean, I just feel like we have spent a lot of money on legal.
Mrs. Lamont Dixon, is this appropriate for open?
I think that if you're just limiting it to asking for a item, yes, just don't go into too much detail about.
Yeah. Because I feel like we have spent a lot of money on legal. I mean, I don't think it could hurt, and maybe it's an opportunity to come to terms with some things so that we're not continuing to spend money. I don't know. It was just an email that I received, yesterday. And I think that it's worth the conversation, in my opinion.
And we can't discuss that, so is there any interest in this item? All right. The item does not have enough interest. Mr. Grabowski.
You brought it up before, and then hurricanes and other things got in our way, but I would like to have a motion with action, or possible action, that the Pledge of Allegiance in honor of the Texas flag be on our agenda for not just regular board meetings, but special board meetings as well.
Is there any interest in this item? I can just do it. Like, yeah, I'll just.
Thank you.
I got you. All right, so, anybody else? So the time is now 8:31. This meeting is adjourned.